I'd also like to talk to you a little bit about what happened to you when you were going to the dentist. Now, do you feel comfortable talking about it?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to take this one slow, guys. All right, we're going to go step by step. So you were going to a dentist appointment, and you're on the road, and what happens first?
Yeah, so going to the dentist on the road, and I get to the road that the dentist is on, and I'm making a left turn. So the guy in front of me was driving a Jeep. There was me behind him, and then there was a few cars behind me where the light turned green. It was a green arrow, turn left. He didn't go, and the car behind me beeped. And he threw his hand up, starts making a left-hand turn, and then goes, starts driving, and then as I'm turning left in the middle of the intersection, he slams on his brakes. So I slam on my brakes, so the people behind me slam on their brakes, and then they start beeping, and it's just made this gentleman like irate, just completely irate. So as we're trying to drive down this, one lane each way road, he keeps slamming on his brakes. And he slams on his brakes, and he slams on his brakes, and every time I try to slow down or back up, he starts acting like he's driving, so we all start trying to pick up speed, and then he slams on his brakes. So it was like he was adamant, slamming on his brakes to try to make me rear end him. So I kind of backed off, and a little bit further up the road, almost to the dentist's office, it splits into two lanes both ways. So I went to try to go around him or just get in the other lane so I could get from behind him. And he swerved his Jeep over. And then I tried to switch lanes to go back, and he swerved his Jeep over again, so he wouldn't let me pass him. So I threw my hands up like, what in the world? And I beat the horn. And then he started tapping on his brakes again. So I just backed off and just kind of stayed backed off. And I waited, and we went about a half a mile up the road, and I hung a left into the dentist office and pulled into the parking lot. I was pretty upset, pretty shaken up. At one point, before we got there, I tried to go back in the other lane, and he almost swiped me, and I ran off the road. So I just kind of backed up. Then I pulled into the dentist office, getting my stuff together. I'm just kind of like, oh my gosh, what happened? And I looked behind me, and he pulled in the parking lot and parked behind me. Gets out of the car, starts banging on my window, calling me all kind of derogatory names and things like that. So I called the police. And the people in the dentist's office came out, trying to figure out what was going on. And I'm on the phone with the police, and I'm like, this man is irate. He's crazy. He's threatening me. You could hear him like belligerent in the back. He was going to beat me down. I mean, this is a huge man. And the lady from the dentist office that came out was African American. And there was also a Latino gentleman that came out. And they come out, and I'm like, I can't get in. And she's like, sir, you need to leave the property. You need to leave the property. Now, the owner of this dentist practice is African American. She owns that office. It's her office. She proceeds to come out as well and tell him to leave. And he told her, I'm not leaving anywhere. Call the cops if you want. And he called her the N-word. Which she handled it beautifully. I mean, they kind of shielded me, helped me get in. I went into a bathroom until the police got there, but he was just, he called the dental assistant and the owner, the N-word, said he wasn't leaving. They couldn't make him leave, and he was going to stay there and wait until the police showed up. The police show up. They get his statement first, then they come in. I'm still hiding in the bathroom. They had to lock the doors to lock him out. I tell what happened, and this man made the comment that I flipped him off. And that's why he was so irate. He had passed the dentist office, turned around, came back in, blocked me in, threatened to hit me, threatened to do all these things, because he thought that I had beeped at him and flipped him off. Which I didn't flip him off. I didn't beep at him either until later on. But the police just kind of were like, well, if you want to press charges for communicating threats, we'll give you their information. Well, then the dentist came out and said, what about all of these racial slurs that he was saying and threatening me and my office staff? And they basically just kind of threw it up and was like, if you want to file charges too, you can. Here's his information, but we're not going to do anything. And they let him go.
Yeah. So I remember you calling me and telling me that story, and you were upset because of the way the police handled the situation. I remember specifically you were upset about how, he was speaking to the gentleman first. He didn't really want to hear what you guys had to say.
Right.
Directly to the gentleman, took his story, and then kind of just brushed you guys off.
Yeah.
And it's important that people understand that a lot of times you have to just kind of take this type of abuse and there's no recourse, right? There's no system in place for people to actually deal with these situations and actually protect, you and to make people accountable for what they're doing. Accountability for racism and, violence associated with racism really is only rising because of the advent of technology, right? And because we have these phones that people can capture these events on video now, so people can't as easily just pretend like they don't exist or they're not a big deal.
Yeah, my frustration, I think, came from, and we discussed this, is that there was no consequences for his actions. So there was no, you shouldn't say these things. You can go to jail. There's nothing to hold him, like you said, accountable, but there were no consequences. So the only way that he would have had to, and we talked about this, would have been if I went down and had to file charges. If the dentist office had to go down and file charges, that would take time away from us to have to get attorneys, go to court, cost money, for him to be reprimanded by a judge, but then there really, truly, honestly be no consequences for his behavior. What they would have done, like we talked about, is they would have sent us to mediation. He would have said, oh, I'm sorry, whatever, and left it at that. But he continues to rage and be, using racial slurs and doing dangerous behavior. They didn't even write him a ticket. And there was a witness that they took a statement from that pulled into the dentist's office that said he ran me off the road, that he was tapping on his brakes trying to cause an accident, and they never even wrote him a ticket.
Yeah. And I remember you also telling me that he was a military veteran. Isn't that right?
Yep, he sure was. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I remember, I guess the officer noted that in kind of why he was letting him go.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So there you go, guys. Veteran privilege right there, along with white privilege to go along with it.
Definitely.
And so crazy situation that you had to go through with that. And, I'm really proud of you for sharing that with us today. I know that wasn't easy for you because I know it was traumatizing for you, going through that situation. Mm-hmm. I mean,
yeah.
And it was heartbreaking for me, thinking about you huddled, in the bathroom, hiding from this guy. You should never be put in a situation like that. And, of course, it made me angry. And, yeah, these stories are super important for everyone to hear. Everyone needs to understand that, even if you're not individually dealing with racism, even if you yourself personally are not having to go through situations like this, these are real people experiencing real events, young and old, regardless of race. And these are significant consequences that can impact people's lives substantially. And I think that that's exactly why we're doing the work that we're doing here at the Contraband Wagon, guys, is to bring these stories out, to give people a platform to share them, first of all, right? Because a lot of times people don't want to talk about stuff like this, right? It's a difficult conversation, and it's traumatic, right? You're re-experiencing that trauma every time you tell it as well. So a lot of people don't want to do that, especially not live, right? Especially not recorded on video that's going to be posted on YouTube. So you're really brave for coming on here and sharing that. And this is reality, guys.
Thanks for watching. For access to the full-length conversation and all of the 2-hour-long unedited conversations that I've had on race, click the support link in the description below. Thanks for your support, and see you next time.